Everything you know about potato chips is a lie, and I can prove it. You've heard the story a million times. An angry chef in 1853, a complaining customer. Paper-thin potato slices made out of pure spite. It's one of the most famous food origin stories in American history, and almost none of it is true. Today I'm going to tell you the real story behind potato chips, who actually invented them, how the myth was created, and the incredible chef who turned a local curiosity into a billion-dollar industry. Spoiler alert, it's way more interesting than the revenge story. Let's dive in. So here's the story you've probably heard. The year is 1853. The place is Moon's Lake House, a fancy resort restaurant in Saratoga Springs, New York. The head chef is a man named George Crum, part African-American, part Native American from the Huron tribe. One evening, a difficult customer keeps sending back his fried potatoes, complaining they're too thick, too soggy, not crispy enough. The chef gets angrier with each returned plate. Finally, Crum snaps. He decides to teach this customer a lesson. He slices potatoes paper thin, impossibly thin, fries them until they're crisp as glass, and dumps so much salt on them you couldn't possibly eat them with a fork. It's the ultimate kitchen revenge. But here's the twist. The customer loves them, absolutely devours them. Other diners see what he's eating and want them too. Word spreads. Everyone's ordering these Saratoga chips. And just like that, boom, potato chips are born. Now, in many versions of this story, they even name the difficult customer, Cornelius Vanderbilt. Yes, that Vanderbilt, one of the richest men in America, the railroad tycoon, the guy with all the money and attitude. It's perfect, right? The arrogant millionaire versus the working-class chef. The chef gets his revenge through culinary genius. The rich guy is humbled by his own greed. It's got everything: class conflict, poetic justice, accidental brilliance. This story has been told in cookbooks, food documentaries, history classes, and even on packages of potato chips themselves. The Snack Food Association promoted it for decades. Multiple chip companies have referenced it in their marketing. Everyone knows this story. There's just one problem. None of it actually happened. Let's start with Cornelius Vanderbilt. Historians checked the records. In the summer of 1853, Vanderbilt wasn't anywhere near Saratoga Springs. He was in Europe. So unless he sent his potatoes back by telegram, he definitely wasn't the complaining customer. Second problem, Moon's Lake House. The restaurant where this supposedly happened? The Moon family didn't even own it until 1854, a full year after the alleged chip invention. But here's the biggest problem of all. Crispy fried potatoes were already popular in Saratoga Springs by 1849, 4 years before George Crum supposedly invented them in a fit of rage. In fact, a cook named Eliza, about whom we know very little, was already serving thin, crispy fried potatoes at Moon's Lake House in 1849. And if you go even further back, the earliest known recipe for potato chips dates to 1817 in England by a chef named William Kitchener in his cookbook, The Cook's Oracle. Sorry, America, we didn't invent this one.
So, if the story is fake and George Crum didn't invent potato chips in a fit of rage, what did he actually do? And why do we still tell this story? Well, turns out the real story is even better than the myth.
George Crum was a real person. He was a real chef, and he did make potato chips famous. But the way he did it shows us something way more valuable than a revenge fantasy. It shows us culinary perfection and marketing genius. George Crum, born George Speck, came into the world in 1824. His father was African-American. His mother was from the Huron and Mohawk tribes. Before he ever touched a chef's knife, he worked as an Adirondack mountain guide, taking wealthy tourists on hunting and fishing expeditions through the wilderness. But Crum discovered he had another talent: cooking. Specifically, cooking wild game: venison, duck, woodcock, rabbit. The kind of rustic, high-end cuisine that wealthy New Yorkers traveled hours to Saratoga Springs to experience. By the 1850s, he was head chef at Moon's Lake House, one of the most prestigious resort restaurants in the region. And this is where the potato chip story gets interesting. Like we said, thin fried potatoes were already being served at Moon's Lake House. Eliza, a cook there, had been making them since at least 1849. But George Crumb, he perfected them. He experimented obsessively. How thin should the slices be? What's the ideal frying temperature? How long should they cook? What kind of salt works best? Crumb treated it like a science project. He tested and refined until he created the crispiest, crunchiest, most addictive version anyone had ever tasted. And people noticed. His version became so popular that customers started specifically requesting Crumb's potatoes, or Saratoga chips. Other restaurants tried to copy them, but nobody could quite match his technique. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't revenge. This was a master chef perfecting his craft. In 1860, George Crumb made a bold move. He opened his own restaurant, Crumb's Place, in nearby Malta, New York. And here's where his genius really shows. He put a basket of his chips on every single table. Not as a side dish, not as something you ordered, as the signature welcome experience. Free chips before your meal. Think about that for a second. This is 1860. Crumb just invented the free appetizer, the chips and salsa, the bread basket, the thing that hooks you the moment you sit down. It was brilliant marketing. By the time your actual meal arrived, you'd already fallen in love with those chips. You'd remember them, you'd tell your friends, you'd come back just for those chips. And here's the best part. Crumb had rules. No favoritism, no special treatment. Millionaires like William Vanderbilt, Cornelius Vanderbilt, Jay Gould, the richest men in America, they waited in line like everyone else. His prices matched the fanciest restaurants in New York City. But people paid it, gladly, because the food, and especially those chips, were worth it. Crumb ran his restaurant for 30 years, closing in 1890. He never patented the potato chip, never tried to mass-produce them, never franchised his restaurant, but he didn't need to. What George Crumb did was more valuable than any patent. He turned potato chips from a regional curiosity into a cultural phenomenon. When other entrepreneurs started selling Saratoga chips across America in bags and boxes, they were all copying what Crumb had perfected and popularized. The name Saratoga chips became synonymous with quality, and it all traced back to Crumb's restaurant. George Crumb died on July 22, 1914, at the age of 90. He'd lived life entirely on his own terms, as a chef, as a businessman, and as a man who made millionaires wait in line for his food. So where did the angry chef story come from? In the 1950s, the snack food industry was booming. Companies needed origin stories to make their products feel special, authentic American. A man named Harvey Noss, who founded the Snack Food Association, started promoting the Crumb revenge story. It was simple, it was dramatic, it was memorable, and it sold chips. The problem? It wasn't true. But by the time historians started fact-checking it, the story had already spread everywhere. It became one of those facts everyone knows, except it's not a fact at all. The irony is, the real story is so much better. George Crumb didn't need revenge to be brilliant. He was already brilliant. His legacy isn't a moment of anger, it's decades of excellence, innovation, and business savvy. That's the story worth remembering. So the next time you eat a potato chip, remember George Crumb. Not the angry chef from the myth, but the real one, the perfectionist, the marketer, the man who made potato chips irresistible. If you enjoyed this deep dive into food history, subscribe for more stories about the real people behind your favorite foods. Every picture has a tale, and we are here to frame it. Thanks for watching.